Uh, James, we've interviewed a couple people today. I'm just going to go ahead and jump in.
Sure.
And really, our goal is to get a couple different perspectives from both employers in the restaurant industry and employees around the conversation of mental wellness. So
Sure.
we asked everybody the same questions, and we'll just kind of roll through them. And oh, who's that?
Sorry,
Oh, you're fine.
my speaker decided to take over. Okay, go ahead.
That was awesome. So we'll just roll with the questions and then have a be pretty conversational and jump off by 1:50.
Sure.
I think I still hear a voice. Oh, there's my dog. We're having a super real Zoom moment. I love it.
Great. It's all happening.
It's all part of it.
Okay.
You do
Okay,
what
there we
you
go.
need to do. You're
All right,
fine.
I think it's officially off.
That's awesome.
All right.
So let's just jump in
Okay.
first with what is your work within the restaurant industry? Your name, of course. And then also,
Sure.
what caused you to say yes to joining this call?
Okay. Well, first off, I'm James Minkle. I've been in the restaurant industry for 21 years now. So I'm 35. I started when I was 14. Someone let me flip burgers at a pizza joint in Inglewood when I was 14, which I think is illegal. But I kind of have worked every station in the restaurant industry. I've been a chef, dishwasher, bartender, server, bar manager, pretty much like run the gamut. I've been a craft cocktail bartender for the past 10 years. And in that time, I've got the ZAG at 30 Under 30. I got Eater's Best Bartenders of 2016. I'm in the 5280 recipe book. Win a handful of bartending competitions. Lost more than I can count, but I'm in the scene regardless. So that's kind of my history in the restaurant industry. So I'm a career bartender as it is. And I think that our mental wellness in this industry is something that's often overlooked and not talked about at all. And it's something I only recently started paying attention to for myself, but think that it's really important to have that conversation and to keep that going because I think it's something that's often overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. What has it been like for you to just navigate the industry in 2020?
I just am taking it one day at a time. I have it a little bit better than others. I'm not living strictly, or I wasn't at the time living just strictly paycheck to paycheck. I had some savings. For the past 5 months though, I'd been on unemployment. So it was actually, it's easy for me because I don't have kids. I don't have a family to pay for. It's just me. So, being on unemployment and solo was fine. And kind of where I come from, I know that I can kind of just pick up and get a job when if it came to it. But Williams and Graham is opening actually tomorrow, this week. So I was kind of furloughed. And I knew I had a job on the other side. So during that time, I kind of just spent time focusing on myself, working out as much as I could, eating healthy, not drinking for a large part of the quarantine, and trying to stay healthy. Because I think during the pandemic, I think one of the best things that we can do for ourselves is just take your vitamins and exercise. I think people that have poor diets and don't treat themselves that well are at risk to have it worse when Corona hits. So there's definitely steps, that we can take to combat that. But I've been trying to just stay positive. It's difficult right now for a lot of people, but I think that I'm blessed in a lot of ways and privileged that I knew I had a job coming out of the other side. It's not like that for everybody. A lot of people, their restaurants are just closing down, their bars are closing down, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the coming months. Williams and Graham, though, it's that bar is as a institution. It's a place that put Denver on the map for craft cocktails, and it's a destination spot. So they knew that they were going to come back. Not every bar or restaurant has that kind of pedigree. So we're kind of in a lucky position, but we're also in a not very lucky position for opening up because we're at 50% capacity or less than that. Actually, we're actually going to be reopening with 24 seats with 2 bartenders, a food runner, a host manager, and then the chef. So I don't see how we're going to make enough money to survive. But we're going to roll with it and we're going to see how it goes. But with 24 seats at a craft cocktail bar, this isn't turn and burn. This is a place where people are sitting down for an hour or two, having a conversation, catching up with friends. They're celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, whatever, and they're hanging out for a long time. And then on top of the lack of the turn and burn, we have to close at 10 because of the mandate of the city. So there's less hours already, less turnover, less seating, and we are splitting the pool less, of course, but I don't think it's going to work out to what we were making before the pandemic hit. So that kind of what we're hoping for is that the laws change, and that we can go back to being open until 1, because the biggest complaint I get from most people that are open right now in the bar industry is that we have to close by 10, and from 10 to 1 is where you're making the majority of your money.
Right.
And so the thought was well, we're going to keep people safer, and that's where more people congregate. And so we're going to break up the crowds more and limit that time that people are making poor decisions. Well, at the same time, that's shooting ourselves in the foot. We're missing out on that prime time profitability.
Sure.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how it moves forward. It's going to be baby steps, though.
Yeah. It's something that I appreciate in what you're talking about is it's all connected, right? Like the realities of what your job now includes connects to your financial picture, connects to your
right.
mental health and stress, depending on your
Mm-hmm.
situation. It's
right.
It's all part of it.
Very much so.
And one of the questions that we had is, how do you think the restaurant industry should address mental health in light of where we are right
now? I think there's a lot of things we can do from the restaurant side and the consumer side. I mean, for the restaurant side, I think just a general understanding of what everybody's going through, just having general compassion and empathy. It sounds simple, but that's something that can go a long way right now. Everybody's having a hard time, and it comes from the top down, I think. And I'm lucky. Sean Kenyon runs that place, and he's been a great mentor for me. he is very much staff first. He's very much, what do you guys need? Let's make sure you guys are happy and safe before we even start service. If you're sick, don't come in, it's fine. He very much runs a staff first kind of business. And I think that'd be an important thing for everybody running any restaurant or bar or business. But within the restaurant, I think if there's a rampant alcoholism that is kind of like underneath the scenes behind the bar and restaurant scene. And right now it's really easy to take to that. You know, everything's super hard. Nobody's making money. At least some people are still, but you know, a lot of people are hurting. And when that happens, a lot of people tend to drink. And behind the bar, it's even worse. And even more so, it's demonized to be sober. Sobriety takes flack. And I think that's an idea that needs to change within the restaurant industry. It needs to be okay to be sober while you work. I think it comes from both sides, the consumer side and the restaurant side, where, you know, I stopped drinking behind the bar a few years ago as just a health in general, well-being rule for myself, and it changed everything. But I get a lot of flack from fellow employees and also from people offering me shots on the consumer side. And I think of it as a more of an empowering thing to be able to say no to people and be okay with it. But it's still not something that's socially acceptable yet. It's kind of a thing where people think, oh, you're a bartender that doesn't drink while you work, like you're a weirdo. I think if we could get rid of that idea, it would be healthier for everybody. And then also on the guest side of things, to make it easier for everyone's mental health is that empathy and compassion, and also knowing that these laws are in place for everyone's safety, but we have to comply with them to survive. And a lot of people don't understand that. So they think of these rules as, oh, we need to have a mask to have an order, or I can't drink this to go drink right in front of the place where I purchased it. And I'm mad because they're saying something about it. Well, we have to comply with these rules or else we'll get ticketed or even worse, shut down. And I see it from the guest side. A lot of people complain and don't want to comply with these things where we're just trying to kind of survive. But you know, we're just doing what we have to do, just to kind of try to make it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that we could help each other out with to make the mental stress a little bit less taxing. Because, you know, before all this even happened, we're still dealing with working, you know, 11-hour shifts behind the stick, having to have a smile on while you're bartending, no matter what's going on in the background, while people are throwing alcohol at you and you're sweating, making cocktails, you know, for 10 hours in one spot without having to move, you know. So before the pandemic, it was even very stressful. Now there's all these extra rules to comply with COVID restrictions, and things are harder now. They're harder, and we're making less money. And I think most people understand, but you know, every bar, every restaurant's gonna have the people who just don't care. You know. But yeah.
I really appreciate those responses. Rob, do you have anything you want to add?
No, yeah, I appreciate the candidness and insight from your perspective.
I think my last question before we jump off would just be, you kind of pointed to this at the beginning of your last answer, but the relationship between employers and employees, and
Ah,
how that can be so important for the mental wellness of where you work. And so
right.
my question is, how do you think the industry can increase trust between employers and employees?
Um, I think that that is a very much a top-down kind of answer. The owners and the management create the environment. They're the ones in charge of the dynamic between the two. If you set yourself up um, in a trustful place and you make sure that you're vetting your employees properly and going through a stage before they hire them to make sure that your staff likes them, um, and talking to them like human beings, uh, and not like they're just a replaceable cog in your machine. I think that you can have a lot more success in the future. I didn't really learn what good management was until I got to Williams and Graham, actually. Um, Unfortunately, our industry, you see, 80, 85% fail rate in restaurants and bars even before COVID started. And I think a lot of that is to do with people that just go headfirst into the restaurant industry with money without the understanding of what it's like to be a bartender or a server, or a dishwasher or a cook, and how hard it is to work these hours with so little money. And they treat them like a replaceable cog. They treat them like, okay, well, if you don't want to work hard, then whatever, I'll fire you and I'll get someone else. They don't see it as, well, this person um, has a difficult life and they need to be treated like a person. Like if uh, from a relationship standpoint, from a manager to an employee, what happens when the employee gets in trouble? Do you talk to them like someone would, like us having a conversation, or do you sit them down? Do you tell them they've been written up, make them sign a form, and belittle them? Like what is, how do you choose to interact with them at that point? And a lot that this is where uh, a lot of things are missed. Like we spend so much time on the guest and the people that are coming into the restaurant, making sure that everything is taken care of for them and that they're super happy. Even if something goes wrong, we make sure that they leave happy and that their experience was perfect. At least that's the goal. And for the majority of restaurants and bars that I've noticed, is that isn't extended to the staff. Your staff is just as important, if not more important, than the guests. They need to be happy too. And so if they aren't treated like family, if they aren't treated like the guest, then your whole business is going to fall apart and you're not going to be able to create that trust to run a successful business. Like a lot of the people where I'm at now have been there for years. Sadie, who is the current bar manager, has been there for almost 6 years now.
Wow.
I've been there for 3 years. Kenny's been there for 3 years. The people who opened the place were there for years and then end up opening their own bars or finishing school or doing whatever, but had a good reason to leave, unless they got fired, of course, but which happens in any place.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm one of the younger ones there. Um, but it's because the owners have that empathy for us. They have that that staff first mentality of, we want to make sure you guys are happy and safe before we start the shift. We in fact went through a period of time there where at the end of the night we were doing these we would stop, and then for like 20 minutes, we would all talk about what happened during the shift, whether it's good or bad, and kind of share in a circle. This was like a very experimental phase for us, and share in a circle, like what happened. And what ended up happening is it became a bitch fest, or it became kind of like like people were drunk and they were like being overly complimentary to each other. And so it just like elongated the time it took for us to close. So the Occidental side continued with it, and then the Williams and Graham side we're all about business. We're just like, we don't want to do this anymore. We just want to close and leave. So we cut it off on our side because we were like, we can do this. Like we can handle the mental stress. We're fine. Let's go. But at least it was put out there by management of like, you guys want to talk about your feelings, like let's talk about them. That's okay. But I think that trust really starts from the top down. I think that if you create the environment of trust, and you are the leader, and you show that you're working just as hard as everyone else, and you're talking to your staff like people, I think it'll create trust within your company that'll last. But it needs to be the leaders need to show it. It needs to come from the top. At least that's my opinion, but that's the way I've seen it work, and that's the way I've seen the successful places stay successful.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't really have anything to add other than, I just really appreciate how you're speaking to it from all sides and what it creates. And also that employers don't always have to get it right, but sometimes just having the initiative and listening to the culture can make a really big difference.
Definitely. Like you can't create a perfect place. It's impossible. You're gonna have to fire people. There's people that aren't going to show up for a shift. There's a lot of variables that are constantly moving that you cannot control. But you can try your best to at least create an environment that encourages that kind of trust and respect in your staff.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, any final thoughts?
No, I would be, one thing we haven't talked about is getting feedback from our participants after they've seen other people's interviews. And I guess I just had the idea that I appreciate what James said, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts after you get to see the whole recorded session as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's one thing that I've noticed, it's what a difference a person-centered model makes, whether it's within a restaurant that may be doing well or a restaurant that is really feeling the brunt end like bars are. So I really appreciate all your thoughts, and thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
For sure. All right. Well, you have a good day.
Cheers, you too.
Thanks, James.
All right. See ya.